You also know, guys, it's Houston Sports Topic. In the video today, and today I'm going to be going over my bold predictions for the Houston Texans in this Week 8 matchup against the Carolina Panthers. As you have the number 1 overall pick versus the number 2 overall pick, and then you have the number 3 overall pick coming after the number 1 overall pick for the Texans defense with Will Anderson Jr. Trying to bring some pass rush to Bryce Young in tomorrow's game. I know the Panthers are 0-6. I know the Texans are 3-3, and I know, when the schedule makers, put this game together, they were thinking the Texans would be terrible, which honestly, as a Texans fan, I was not thinking that. I thought the Texans were actually going to surprise a lot of people, and they thought the Panthers would be mid and have a potential chance to win the division. Basically, both teams have flip their expectations. I mean, the Panthers, the way they're playing right now is the way people thought the Texans would be playing. And the Texans, the way they're playing right now is the way people thought the Panthers would be playing. That's the truth. But still, you got number 1 overall pick Bryce Young. You have number 2 overall pick C.J. Stroud. And you have number 3 overall pick Will Anderson Jr. You have the top 3 picks from last year's NFL draft all in the same game. And that's not national televised. I know it's the Texans and the Panthers. I know team-wise it doesn't sound great, but it'd get a lot of views because you got number 1 and number 2 overall picks going up against each other. And then, Will Anderson Jr., number 3 overall pick on the defensive side. So, really did that, when I saw the schedule come out and I saw this was a normal 12 o'clock game, it really did surprise me. But getting into my predictions for the Texans in this game, some keynotes. I mean, something I literally just read. Robert Woods is going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks. That's a tough blow for the Texans. He's been playing some really solid football at the wide receiver position for the Texans this year. In their last game, he just got his first touchdown reception. So that sucks for the Texans. But, thank God Noah Brown in their last game against the Saints came back from the IR. So they have him back. Tank Dell's back from concussion. So those are good signs at the wide receiver position. Xavier Hutchinson is probably a no-go for the Texans tomorrow at wide receiver. I don't think he will play. Looking at the wide receiver position, you have obviously Nico number 1, and then Tank's back, he's number 2, and then you have John Mechie and Noah Brown. So getting into my bold predictions for this game, let's get into it. Number 1, I think we see a huge game for Will Anderson Jr. I really do. I have him getting a sack, if not a sack and a half. And if not, let's go with a sack and 2 tackles for loss. I think we'll see a big game for Will Anderson Jr. We really haven't. He's been quiet recently, and I just see, the Texans coming off the bye. Same thing for the Panthers. I think Will Anderson Jr. has a big game for the Texans on the defensive side. I think this Texans defense has a big game in general. And for the Texans also, I think Tank Dell. I think the Panthers are going to be focusing a lot on Nico Collins. So I think with Tank Dell having some time off, hasn't played since the first half of the Falcons game, which was a long time ago. A couple games have passed since then. A couple weeks have passed since then. We played the Saints, and then we had the bye week. So he hasn't played in a while. He's probably healthy, right? He's probably ready to go. Maybe him being a little bit rusty, missing the second half of the Falcons game, then the Saints game, then having the bye week. Maybe he'll be a little rusty, but I don't think so. I think he'll go out there and play a great game, and I think the Panthers defense is going to probably trying to be focusing more on Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz covering those guys, which I think that opens up for Tank Dell to have a big game. And then I think another guy I think really has a big game for the Texans offensively is Noah Brown. I said this last time, and he only had 2 receptions for 37 receiving yards, but he did have a huge 37-yard reception to get the Texans, in good field position, brought them inside the 10. It was a huge catch for the Texans in the Saints game. But now with Robert Woods out 2 to 3 weeks, I see Noah Brown setting the tone early for the Texans in the first half and making some good plays, and trying to secure that wide receiver number 3 right now with Robert Woods out for the next 2 to 3 weeks. I see a big game for Noah Brown. I'd probably say definitely over 40 receiving yards, maybe 45, 55 receiving yards for Noah Brown tomorrow with 4 or 5 receptions. But yeah, I don't know about Nico though. I mean, I think that's the guy this Carolina defense is going to be focusing a lot on and trying to stop. So that probably means more targets for guys like Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, and Noah Brown. And maybe even the Texans trying to get, that's another thing. I see the Texans maybe trying to get Dameon Pierce, going because he's been terrible this season. And no other team to get Dameon Pierce hot than against the Carolina Panthers. Their defense is terrible, and this is the game I could see Dameon Pierce going off. And I think he does it. I think he'll run near 100 rushing yards. I have him. I'm gonna go with him having 21 carries for 94 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. I see a big game for him tomorrow. But getting into some score predictions, I think Bryce Young shows a good thing. Shows a good game. Bryce Young had the week off. Their last game against the Dolphins, he didn't look terrible. Had a strong start, then it went sideways. Now he's had a week off after that, second half collapse. So I think we see a solid performance, but still I don't think it's enough for the win. I think the Houston Texans win this one 31-20. I think Stroud throws 3 passing touchdowns. Texans score 4 touchdowns, 1 on the run with Dameon Pierce. 3 touchdown passes from Stroud. I'm gonna go 2 to Tank Dell. I think he has 100. I think he has 105 receiving yards for 2 touchdowns. I'm gonna go with a first touchdown for the year for Noah Brown. Actually no. No. I'm gonna go first touchdown of his career for John Mechie. So we're going to go touchdown for John Mechie and 2 touchdowns for Tank Dell and a rushing touchdown for Dameon Pierce and a 40-yard field goal for Kaimi Fairburn. Let's go either 41, 42-yard field goal. That doesn't really matter, though. But I got the Texans winning it 31-20 and moving on to 4-3, which would be a great win for the Houston Texans. When was the last time the Texans were over 500? The last time the Texans were over 500 was in week 1 of the 2021 season when they beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 37-21. So the Texans have not been over 500 since week 1 of the 2021 season. That's week 1. So if you really want to, that's, being plus 500, that is not week 1. I really don't want to count week 1. We haven't been plus 500 since the 2019 season, which would be crazy to think about for the Texans getting a win tomorrow. That's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts, and peace out. Go Texans.